Good evening, I'm Joel Flynn in Hong Kong. Welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Cramped, hot and insufficiently staffed. Report finds little improvement made at care homes for the disabled despite government promises for change. Patients will have to pay more for public medical treatments starting today. The hikes are aimed at preventing abuse of services. And the bodies of missing sailors aboard USS Fitzgerald are found in flooded compartments. Shocking living conditions and a series of scandals, including an alleged case of rape at care homes for the disabled, made headlines last year and saw the government pledge improvements within a 3-year timeframe. But half a year on, a report by local broadcaster Now TV has found little has changed. At Graceful Home, there's little space in the dormitory, around 10 beds cramped into one small room here, and there doesn't appear to be a wardrobe or bedside table, which are requirements for all the residents. The home is operated by the parent company of a care home that had its licence revoked last year. Despite the recent hot weather warning, air conditioners weren't turned on, and when Now TV visited this home, there was only one staff member looking after the residents living across all 3 floors. Well, earlier I spoke to our reporter Evelina Leung and asked her why the government is having such a hard time getting these care homes to fulfil what are actually part of their licence requirements.
Joe, I have been speaking to some of those affected by this problem, and they say that the government shouldn't find it difficult at all to deal with this problem because it's got all the means, including financially, to build more decent quality care homes for the disabled here in Hong Kong. But they say that the number of people affected by this problem is so small compared with other issues in Hong Kong. The government doesn't feel this as an urgent matter it has to deal with straight away. And also, I spoke to lawmaker Fernando Cheung, who said that the current government policies make the care homes not scared of any law enforcement actions at all. Let's take a listen.
These privately run homes don't really care and don't have to be scared of the government's enforcement of the law because at this point, the subsidized homes that are run by the NGOs are fully booked and even they have a very long wait time. For example, the homes for the severely disabled people have a waiting time of about 17 years. And if the government is to close down a private home, they would have a hard time finding places to relocate these residents.
Well, Joe, it may seem like the government hasn't been doing much on this issue, but it's not to say it hasn't been doing anything at all. Because according to Now TV figures, the number of care homes for the disabled here in Hong Kong dropped by 30 compared with last year. And it seems like they had their licenses revoked. So it does seem like the government is doing something, but just not as proactive as we would like it to be. And the government did actually give a time frame of 3 years to solve this problem. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see to see if the government is more proactive and if this problem can actually be solved.
11 people have been arrested for applying for credit cards with fake documents. Police are not ruling out making more arrests, though. The suspects are aged between 23 and 49. Authorities say one of the arrested women is accused of creating fake salary statements. She was working with 2 bank salesmen. Other arrested suspects are said to have provided their personal information to the trio. Police said the banks hadn't suffered any losses as a result of the scam. Starting from today, public hospitals will charge patients more for medical treatments. The cost of accident and emergency services will go up from $100 to $180. It's the first A&E service fee hike since 2002. At Queen Elizabeth Hospital, non-emergency patients will also have to wait for over 8 hours under the new arrangement. The move is aimed in part at stopping people from abusing A&E services. Health Minister Koh Wing-man said the government will closely monitor the change in patient numbers and service operations over the next few weeks. Meanwhile, hospital expenses for emergency patients increased from $100 to $120. Hospitals will also charge $5 more for clinical services. In other medical-related news, an industry group representing physiotherapists has slammed a healthcare manpower review for understating the impact of a shortage of physiotherapists in Hong Kong. At a press conference responding to the review, which was published earlier this week, the group warned the shortage may mean compromising on service quality. Hong Kong currently has about 3,000 physiotherapists. That means there's a ratio of about 2,500 people to every physiotherapist, compared, for instance, with just a few hundred in other developed economies. The report predicts the city may be short by as many as 1,000 physiotherapists by 2030 and suggested self-financing schools to organise physiotherapy courses. Just 2 weeks before the chief executive's term of office ends, Siwa Leung says his government has made progress in solving difficult social problems. These include housing, poverty and environmental issues and challenges brought about by an ageing society. In an interview with Chinese state media, Leung said the government's welfare expenditure jumped nearly 70% compared with 5 years ago. He added setting up a poverty line and increasing land and housing supply also helped. The outgoing leader said one of his regrets of his leadership was failing to set up a cultural bureau due to filibustering in the LegCo. Leung also gave advice on how to keep one country, two systems unchanged amid what he called the rise of new problems.
The central government in Hong Kong have made a great effort to implement one country, two systems. On top of having a comprehensive understanding of the basic law, people from different sectors of society should learn every law accurately. They have to understand the meaning behind each law.
News elsewhere now, and the bodies of missing sailors on board the USS Fitzgerald have been found inside the vessel. That's following a collision between the destroyer and a container ship. In a statement, the US 7th Fleet said the bodies were discovered in flooded compartments, though it didn't say whether all 7 missing crew members were found. But Japanese media reported them as being dead. The sailors were reported missing after the guided missile destroyer collided with a Philippine-flagged container ship south of Tokyo Bay in Japan early on Saturday. The trial of comedian Bill Cosby on sex assault charges has collapsed after the judge declared a mistrial. 79-year-old Cosby was accused of drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand in Philadelphia in 2004. The jury in the trial had been deliberating for 52 hours, but failed to reach a unanimous verdict. Around 60 other women made similar accusations against the celebrity, but many were too old to be brought to court. Pennsylvania prosecutors have vowed to retry the case. Cosby's lawyer, though, said her client had been vindicated.
He's, an almost 80-year-old man. I am sure that seeing these claims levied against him and experiencing what he's had to experience in the courtroom has discouraged him to some extent and has zapped some of his energy. But I think he feeds off of the audience. He feeds off of knowing that he can bring joy to people. And I think there is certainly opportunity for him to regain his strength and to live to do what he wants to do, which is tell his stories.
The Syrian army declared a ceasefire in the city of Daraa for 48 hours as mediators announced 2 separate attempts to convene peace talks next month. In a statement, it said it was being implemented to support reconciliation efforts. The United Nations says it wants to start a fresh round of peace talks between Syrian factions on July 10th in Geneva. Russia also said it hoped to hold talks in Kazakhstan's capital Astana from July 4th. The United States welcomed the ceasefire announcement and called on the Syrian government to live up to its ceasefire commitments. Meanwhile, preparations are underway in the event of Islamic State being defeated in the Syrian city of Raqqa. A new batch of police officers are seen here attending their graduation ceremony after completing a training program backed by the US-led coalition. They are expected to be deployed to Raqqa to maintain order and peace once IS is driven out of the rest of the province. Raqqa has had no police force after it was taken over by IS in 2011. The US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have now seized back territory to the north, east and west of Raqqa. OK, coming up, the latest from the world of business. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank says it will focus on low-carbon investments going forward. The China-led bank has promised to use its money to help members meet climate change goals under the Paris Agreement, which the US is withdrawing from. Speaking at its annual meeting in South Korea, the AIIB said it could issue bonds as a way of raising capital to increase its lending power. Some environmentalists are still unhappy with the bank, though, complaining that its energy plans could mean investments in coal, considered a major contributor to climate change.
We believe it is important for us to support the transition of the borrowing countries to low-carbon economy. Eventually, like some of the developed countries, some countries could have zero carbon, economy. So we are very much committed to that.
Well, like Beijing and New Delhi, Seoul is another Asian metropolis grappling with bad air. According to a recent report by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, about 14,000 people die prematurely every year in South Korea because of it, and the situation is getting worse. This past year, the government issued more than 90 ultrafine dust warnings, up more than 30% from the previous year. It's also why a new consumer product is becoming a hot commodity, as Joseph Kim reports.
Lee Jung-min browses the shelves looking for everyday items. But her shopping list is a little unusual. It includes bottled water, but Lee is also looking for another basic necessity: air.
My body is precious to me. Because we live by breathing, we don't want to take in air in a polluted area. It's natural we want to breathe good air.
Oxygen canisters have risen in popularity recently, with the government set to make bottled air a medicinal quasi-drug in 2018. Auction.com says its online sales of canned oxygen have skyrocketed by more than 500% compared to the previous year. South Korea ranks among the world's worst for air quality, according to monitoring site Air Visual, with air pollution soaring to record levels this year. The situation's so bad that one civic group is taking legal action against the Korean and Chinese governments.
Although the two countries are the ones that need to be working the hardest to fight fine dust pollution, there's no effort. So through the lawsuits, we wanted to bring attention to the issue to the two countries so that policies could change for the people.
But while sales of oxygen have increased along with conventional